All right, in the last video, we talked about kind of the general idea of what a function is. Now I want to, before we talk about Python functions or functions in programming, I want to talk about mathematical functions. And hopefully this is something you have seen before. You have probably seen something like this, f of x is equal to 2x. Now, a mathematical function and a Python function work in a very similar way, at least in the way they look and in the way that you can kind of reuse them to do things multiple times. So in this case, I have a function and the name of the function is f, and you're going to see the parentheses, and it takes one parameter, and that parameter in this case is x. Now, x could be anything, any number we want we can put in for x. We could say f of 2, and the argument in this case is 2, and the final result is 4, because if I say x is equal to 2, then that means 2 times x is equal to 4. Okay? And if I do f of 6, that means 2 times 6 is equal to 12. All right. Now, in math, you're always going to get a number, or you're going to get another equation or something out of it. You're never going to get anything that's completely unexpected. While in programming, things work a little bit differently. What I want you to take away from this, though, is that we have one function. This is a function definition. We've defined the function, and we can use it multiple times. So we can use it as many times as we want with different parameters, different inputs. So to use the language that we just saw, the input is x, the output will be the whatever the result of 2x is. All right, so let's look how this kind of works in Python. So in Python, we've got functions that have more descriptive names. So down here, I've got 5 different functions. Okay, and these functions, we've got print, max, int, float, and min. I'm not expecting you to know what these are. If you want to pause the video and go off and do a little programming right now, you can. We will do that in just a second though, so you can just hold on. When we run one of these functions, we say that we are actually calling it. So by calling the function, it means we are running the function. If I had f of x, calling it would be saying f of 2, and then I would have the calculation and I would get the output. So the processing happens with 2 times x, and the calling happens when I actually write down f of 2. All right, so let's look at these few different functions, and then we're going to do some practice with them here. So these are Python functions, and I'm going to show you where you can actually code these up, and you can see some output in just a second. All right, so we have got 7 different problems here, and we are going to run these. So how do you run them? Well, to run something, you've got to use the Python interpreter, the Python tool that you have. Maybe you've been given this in class. If you haven't, go ahead and come over to REPL, just repl.it, and go ahead and select Python when you get there, and you should get a screen that looks kind of like this. You just might have some files off to the right, but I've gone ahead and shrunk that down to give myself more screen space here. Okay, so given this is going to be your source file. It will always be named main.py for the first one you have here. Every time you create a new one, you can change the name of the file by adding, you can add more files and you can change the names there. But for right now, it's always going to be named main.py. All right, so let's jump back here and let's pick some of these to run. So I'm going to start with just this first one here, this print, and then I'm going to put some stuff in here. So this is a function called print. And print, if I put hi in here, print will run and it will print something out to the screen, prints out hi. So print is a function that takes in some value. Now you notice this is weird, it's not a number or anything like that, it's actually it's words. And it's going to print that out to the screen for us. So the function is print, the input is hi, the processing behind the screen is whatever it takes in order to get this to display. And then the output is this coming out to this actual screen. Okay. Now let's try to print some numbers here. Let's go ahead and print this. You can print whatever you want, really. 560. I could even put, I can put some sort of decimal point here. It's going to print out whatever I put in here. It's going to go ahead and display it on the screen for me. Okay, not really too difficult. All right, let's jump back and look at some of these other ones here. Actually, we don't need to jump back. What I'm going to do is, yeah, we'll jump back. We're going to pick out this one, but I'm just going to show you this here, this max 143. So let's take a look at what that does. So I'm going to say max 1, 4, and 3. All right, so if I go ahead and run this, what happens is it just prints out the first number here, but nothing prints out from max. Why is that? Well, max is not a function that prints things to the screen. Max is a function that, if you take a guess, hopefully you can figure out, it gets the biggest number from here. So it's going to give us 4 in this case. So how would I print it out? Well, I've kind of given you a clue here. In this first one is print max 543. So let's, instead of having max here, we're going to print, and then we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have matching parentheses. So if I click here, this parenthesis matches this one, this parenthesis matches this one. Okay. Now we're going to come back and revise how this stuff works. We're going to do this many times. So if you're not getting everything right now, don't worry. If I do this, what's going to happen is it will run and it will print out 4. This function runs, gets me 4, and then the 4 goes into print and it prints that out. This is very different from what you might see in a regular math class. Usually you don't have functions inside functions like this. All right, and you're going to notice that all of my examples here are very similar. We've got int, we've got float, we've got min, we've got print. Let's look at int and float really quick, and then I'll probably stop this video and we'll go on to the next one. So int, say I put 5.6 here. Int means integer. If you're familiar with an integer in math class, it's either it's any negative or positive number, including 0, that does not have a decimal on it. So it's any whole number, positive or negative. Okay, so if I run this, it will make this 5. So int actually will turn this into an integer, and it does it just by lopping everything off at the end. Just cuts everything off and rounds down to the nearest number. Now, this here is a little bit different. Let me put 5 in here. And you probably don't know this word float. It has nothing to do with floating. And if I run this, I will get 5.0. So the first print statement is 50.43, then we've got 4, then we got 5, then we got 5.0. It actually took this integer here and gave me a decimal on the end of it. What float does is gives you a decimal number, a floating point number. And the floating point number in computer science or in Python is going to be any number that has a decimal on the end like this. So 5.1, 0.2, whatever. It's actually 5.6 is a floating point. I turned it into an integer. Okay, so these are some basic functions, and we will be using these throughout this entire series for many different reasons. I said pay attention to this one because you're going to notice that it's going to always round down. You see this, it rounds down. You see this, it rounds down. Always rounds down. This one's a little bit odd. And I'm going to leave the rest of these up to you. So what I want you to do is just go use whatever REPL or whatever online one, or if you have one installed on your computer, whatever editor and interpreter for Python you're using. Just go ahead and run these, see what sort of output you get. Okay? And in the next video, we're going to do some practice, a little bit more practice with these, and we're going to do some work with operators. Okay? All right. Thanks for watching.